Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about K-pop concepts that aged poorly. It's basically impossible to be a K-pop stan and not know of the various different concepts that exist within the genre, and I know that me, along with probably most people watching, have both their favorite and their least favorite concepts. But in this video, I'm going to be doing some commentary on concepts that I used to really enjoy, but I don't necessarily like them as much as I used to. The general point that I'm going to be making surrounding all of these concepts is that I think they started off, or at least used to be, in a state of really high quality, where most of the new music and comebacks of these concepts were just phenomenal. But nowadays, in my opinion, that quality has degraded to the point where I'm not excited if groups try out this concept or if new groups debut with it. Hopefully that all made sense. Sorry for keeping you all waiting, and without further ado, let's get into section number 1. Getting the obvious one out of the way, first off we have retro, which I think was a pretty good concept, honestly all the way up until maybe mid-2021. One of the best things about retro is that it really encompasses so many different kinds of music. Some of my favorite examples of this are the old school hip-hop vibe of (G)I-DLE's I.O.I, the big band sound of 17's Home Run, and the city pop style of We Ride by Brave Girls. That's only 3 examples, but all 3 of those songs sound completely different from each other, which is what gave the retro concept in K-pop the strength that it used to have. Just 2 or 3 years ago, everybody and their mother was doing retro, but throughout its first 2 or 3 years, it still felt fun and fresh because people were doing all of these different subgenres that exist within retro. But approximately over the past year, most of that variation has sadly gone away. And one of, if not the last quote-unquote unique retro concept comeback that I saw was Black Mirror by ONEUS all the way back in May of 2021. But recently, it seems like all of the numerous groups that are doing retro have fallen into one of 2 sounds. The lighter and simple pop retro of songs such as DM by Fromis9 and Fire Saturday by Secret Number, or the brighter synth pop style of Cherry Bullet's Love in Space or Icons But You. I don't really know what shifted in the K-pop scene and made these companies think that these were the only 2 versions of retro that they could do, but these 2 sounds really have become the face of retro in the past year, which has sort of blemished my perception of the concept as a whole. My personal preference is that I rarely to never enjoy the synth pop sound, with the only 2 exceptions to this rule that I can think of right now being Mamma Mia by Kara and Chiquita by Rocket Punch. First of all, that type of sound generally is very boring and I cannot take it seriously. It reminds me of songs like Take On Me or Never Gonna Give You Up, which are only good in an ironic and funny type of way. So when K-pop groups try to do it seriously in 2022, it's like, can we please think of something else? And as for the more generic pop sound, I mean, it's not bad. I literally just put DM in my top 10 comebacks of 2022 video, but when you see it over and over and over again, that's when it gets a little bit grating. Retro used to be good because of the variety within it, but now that variety is gone, and gone with it is my enjoyment of the entire concept. Second for this video, we have the more intense, quote-unquote noisy boy groups. To be honest, I don't blame me not enjoying this concept much on any of the groups that debuted in 2020 or earlier, like Stray Kids, MCND, Ateez, they're all safe. But these boy groups that debuted in 2021 and 2022, maybe it's just me, but I cannot get into any of them. For the more, I guess you could say, veteran noisy boy groups, the music that they made was loud, boisterous, but most of all, fun. Their music has these full instrumentals and really exciting choruses, whether they're sung or chanted. Or even occasionally, they do a mostly instrumental chorus, with an interesting and overall just great drop. But nowadays, with the rookie noisy boy groups, all they want to do is drop choruses. And to top it all off, in my opinion, they don't even really do it well. What I enjoy about the noisy boy groups that I stan is that whenever they put out noisy music, it's always, at the very least, catchy. I think of songs like Pirate King by Ateez, Backdoor by Stray Kids, or Ice Age by MCND. And even though the choruses of this song don't have any conventional singing, they still have very defined and memorable rhythm, which is something that these newer boy groups or or at least whoever's making their music, doesn't seem to understand. I'll listen to one of their title tracks, and even though the entire song was loud and in my face, once it's over, it's like I can't even remember what it sounded like. Because it wasn't catchy, there wasn't a good sense of rhythm, and nothing makes these newer boy groups stand out from the tens of other ones that do the exact same thing. I don't want to name specific groups, because I don't think it's in good taste to really point out specific ones that do this, but if you do like any of your own research in the boy groups that debuted in the past 2 years, it won't be hard to find what I'm talking about. Similar to how I feel about retro, it's like everything sounds the same and it doesn't even sound good. So compared to 2020 or early 2021 when I'd be excited to see new boy groups debut, nowadays sometimes I don't even tune in to the ones that I hear about. I'm just bored, and considering like 4 out of 5 new boy groups are noisy and they usually don't make music that I enjoy, listening to their albums kind of feels like a waste of time to me. So many people say all noise music sounds the same, but I think there's a very clear line between good and bad noise music, and nowadays I would say 95% of the noisy boy groups that are debuting don't make good noise. But that's just me. And finally for this video, yes, we're only covering 3 because I have a lot to say about each concept that we are covering, we have experimental music. Now, experimental music by default is going to be polarizing. The whole idea of being experimental is doing things that aren't usually done, which is going to shock people and create a lot of mixed reactions. I have never enjoyed every single experimental song that I've heard. I think by default you should like about 50% of the experimental tracks that you hear. And initially for me in K-pop this was true, but recently not so much. I more so enjoy, I would say, 15% of the experimental tracks that come out. And I think it's because so many people are doing experimental nowadays to the point where it almost feels like people are running out of ideas. I mean, after Aespa released Next Level and Savage, those kind of became the token 4th gen experimental tracks. And because they did so well statistically, so many other groups tried to replicate what they did. Some recent quote-unquote experimental tracks that I can think of are I.O.I by NMIXX, Mem by Purple Kiss, Venpara by Weeekly, and most recently Hit Ya by Lapillus. And to me, while all of these tracks are experimental, at the same time, none of them are good. They almost seem like copy-pasted versions of each other, but then they're slightly altered so that people don't call them out for their plagiarism as if they're turning in an assignment to a teacher. And because they all seem so similar to me, they also don't really seem to have much of a purpose. As I said before, the point of doing experimental is to do something new, but if 3 or 4 other groups have already done what you're trying to do, then all of these experimental tracks that sound exactly like one that came out 2 months ago seem kind of tired. I mean, it's gotten to the point where these experimental tracks are literally boring me. And you know it's bad when your song's main purpose is to stand out from the crowd, but somehow it just ends up fading into the background. And we've gotten to the point where I don't know if these producers know how to make their tracks special, so in order to get people to talk about them, they intentionally make them bad, but that's just my speculation. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we've gotten past the point where experimental tracks actually feel experimental, and nowadays the quote-unquote experimental concept is just any other thing that a group will do. It's not special anymore, and that kind of sucks. And that concludes this video. I feel like that was some of my more heavy and in-depth commentary that I've done recently. Let me know what you thought of what I had to say, and let me know what concepts you've gotten tired of in the comment section down below too. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, and if you want to see more from me, consider subscribing. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Peace out.